Hello, Juliet.
Hi, Dennis. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
All good, thank you.
So you've
Excited for today's
you've been a
class.
bit under the weather this week, though, hey?
No, it hasn't been a great week, but I'm all
Oh,
good to go now.
okay, good. Well, thank you for doing this class for us. Your layouts, as always, are stunning, and people are really enjoying your videos. We did a survey this week, and we asked people who they want to see, and between you and Jenny, it was the top names that came up. So, thank you for
Oh,
always doing it.
fabulous. I'm
Thank you
pleased to
for
hear that.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of it's got to do with the effort and the time that you put into your layouts. It shows with your notes and the video, the classes. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. So
Cool.
I'm excited to get going on today's class. It's such a beautiful collection. And yeah, I'm excited to show everyone what we're going to do.
Great. I'll hand over to you and we can get cracking.
Fabulous.
Thanks.
Right, so this morning we're working with this beautiful Seaside Escape. I'm sure some of you might have already seen Jenny's class. Jenny did the most fabulous interactive layout with this. And I'm going to share some more projects with you this morning. We're going to be doing 2 double layouts. And as usual, I'm going to try and use as many of these products as possible, but there's still loads of leftovers for you to craft afterwards, to make extra cards, to make extra projects. And these are the contents of the bulk pack. As always, it's filled with the most beautiful papers, our acetate sheet, chipboards, and our embellishment pack. So I'm going to quickly show you the projects that we're going to work on today, and then we're going to get to it, and we're going to start prepping for our 2 classes. So I sort of divided the collection in 2, if I can call it that, and this is the first layout that we're going to be doing. I've done a little bit of a beachy, tropical vibe on this one. You can see these beautiful color schemes. I love the touch of the honey golden yellow with the sunshine, sunset, sort of that feel. It's got the most rich, beautiful blues and turquoises. So this is the first layout we're going to be doing a couple of cute little frames. We're going to do some ombre work on our chipboards, add some color, a little bit of glitter. That's the first layout. And then for the second layout, just move that out of the way. I've gone with a little bit more of a sea type layout, I think, less beachy. We've got boats, we've got lighthouses. So for those that perhaps aren't lying on the sand in the beach, this is perfect for if you've gone on a boat cruise, if you walk along the harbor, if you just have images of the sea or any sort of ocean type adventures, then this layout is perfect for you. And here on our chipboards, we've done a little bit of pearls. So it's a slightly different effect there. As usual, there's space for quite a few photos, but you can change it up. You can make smaller photos. You can change some of the journaling blocks and add more photos if you have lots. Even do some pop-ups and folds up if you want to do more photos underneath. Right,
So this one's ideal for people holidaying in Durban this December, you know, because they're not allowed on the beaches there.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
Oh, have you not been following? No,
No.
Since the floods, they've just got raw sewage flowing, so all the beaches are closed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, sorry,
they'll be watching the beach from the boardwalk. So that'll be the Durban layout. The Cape Town one's going to have the...
You'll all have to come to Cape Town because our beaches are beautiful and clean and open. All right. Let's go through our papers quickly. I'm going to just tell you which sheets. As usual, you're going to need your paper trimmer or your guillotine. You are going to need your scissors for fussy cutting. You're going to need your tape or glue, foam tape. And I will quickly just show you the inks and paints that I've used so you can get those out and get those ready. These are the colors that I've used. You can see how beautifully they go with the color scheme on the paper. There are, as usual, my favorite Versa Magic chalk inks. I have also used on the other layout some liquid pearls. I've used a platinum color, but you can really use any color that matches. And of course, my go-to stickles, just to add that little bit of sparkle. So these are the extra consumables that you'll need to decorate your chippies. But we'll get to those in a minute. Let's start with getting our cutting ready. As I said, we're doing 2 projects today. So we are going to cut as I normally do in my classes. We're going to prep all the cutting. We're going to do the cutting for both of the classes. We're just going to make 2 piles, and then we'll construct each layout separately, but we're going to get all the cutting done at once. So this very first sheet, you are going to fussy cut this sheet. We've used just about all the images on there. And then further down in the pack, I'm just pointing out the sheets that we're going to fussy cut, and then we'll get to the rest of the cutting. This sheet, we are going to use some of the quote cards. So you can set that sheet aside. This particular sheet, number 8, is called Beach Balls. I have fussy cut all of these images on the back. And that is it for our fussy cutting today. Sorry, there's one more sheet. This one, number 11, the last sheet in the pack. I've used one of these borders, and we've pretty much fussy cut all of those images here. You don't need all the little dots and that unless you choose to, but it's basically most of the bigger images. This sheet I have not fussy cut. In fact, on this layout, I have used the rope pattern on the back. So if you have cut this, you can just use one of the other papers. If you've already pre-fussy cut, you can just use one of the other papers for the pieces that we're going to use, just with a similar color. But I have not used this on the layout, much to my disappointment, because obviously I want to use everything, but it's sometimes quite difficult to fit it all in, which is why Jenny is able, with all her folds and flaps, she's able to use all of the paper. Mine is a little bit more challenging. Even though the desire is there to use everything, I have to sometimes choose. So in this case, we're using that one. All right. So those are the sheets. As I say, you can set aside for fussy cutting, those 4. And if you have not fussy cut yet, as we go along, you can pause your video and cut out the items that you need and carry on. Right. So let's get to our cutting. I'm going to go sheet by sheet. And I'm going to do them in order of just trying to make my image bigger here. Right. Okay. So as I said, we're going to cut for both layouts, number 1 and number 2. For purposes of this class, I'm going to just call them number 1 and number 2. And we're going to make a pile to the left and the right. And we're going to go in number order of the paper. And the first papers that we're going to use are these sheets called Boardwalk. It's number 1. And we are going to use the full sheets for our background pages. We're going to use the one this side, the other one that side. As you can see, it makes the most beautiful frame background. So all we need to do here is cut off our barcode strips. And we have our backgrounds ready. Obviously, the one is going to be on that side and the other one's going to be on the reverse. Right, so both of these are for our second layout. So I'm going to put them on the number 2 pile. Our next sheet is number 2. It's called Seashore. It is absolutely magnificent. And once again, we're going to use the full sheets for our background that way. And we're going to flip the second one. And again, it makes this absolutely beautiful framed background. Just look at that. It makes you just want to dive in. Okay, so again, we're just going to cut off our border strips. On both of these. And we have our background. Those are for our first project, the beach one. So that I'm going to put to the left. We are going to use both of the striped border strips. Find them, they're hidden underneath. These 2 striped border strips that we cut off of sheet number 1, we are going to use on our second layout. So you can put those aside as well. Right, our next sheet is number 3. It is called Coastline. We are going to use the sand side of one of these. And we'll start by just cutting off. I always just cut my border strips off so that we keep them all one side. And we are going to cut 2 pieces that are 8 centimeters by 8 centimeters. So 2 squares. Right, so we've got 2 squares that are 8 by 8. Both of those we're going to use on our first layout. So they can go to the left side. Then we're going to cut some more pieces for our second layout. And the size that we're going to need for this, we need three pieces that are 11.5 centimeters by 9 centimeters. So I'm going to cut my 11.5, and I'm going to cut 3 pieces of 9. Right, so I've got those 3, and they're size 11.5 by 9. Actually be that way, but it's semantics, the same thing. And these 3 pieces are all for our second layout. So we're going to put them on the right. And then we need one more piece that is 10 by 12.5 centimeters. 12.5. Right, so 10 by 12.5, and this is also for our second layout on the right-hand side. Yeah, that's all we're going to do with those pieces. We don't need the second sheet for now. Right, our next sheet we're going to work with is number 4. It is called Sandbar, and it has this wood grain, beautiful beach washed wood grain on the back. Most of the pieces we're going to cut from here are from the wood grain side. Cut off our border strip. Right, so we've got quite a few pieces to cut from this sheet. And we are going to, I don't think it really matters which orientation you use, if you want your wood grain running that way or that way. But if you do want them to all be the same way on your layout, then you need to just plan that before you cut it. So I have used most of mine in the landscape position. So I'm going to cut them like that. Right, so I'm going to cut my first piece I'm going to cut is 10.5. And I'm cutting with my wood grain going that way. 10.5 by 15.5. Okay. 10.5 by 15.5. I'm going to leave them here so that we can see them as we go along. Then we've got another piece that's 10.5 by 7.5. And 10.5 by 7.5. Then we've got one that is 9 by 6.5. And that's also a smallish piece. So we're going to cut it 9. Nine by 6.5. Right, then we've got 2 small squares, and these are going to be used under our frames that are 6.5 by 6.5. So I'm going to cut them that way. Cut to 13. There's my 2 strips that are 6.5 by 6.5. So those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces that we need for the first layout. We can put those aside. For layout number 1. And we've got a few more pieces to cut for layout number 2. Right, now, so for layout number 2, we're actually just going to need a couple of little strips of this. And I want to show you what we're cutting before we cut it, so that you see where we're going with it. I have done like a little mini, like a little wooden fence, I guess, over here, which I've raised with foam tape. So all we need is a couple of strips of this wood grain. We're going to cut them at varying heights, sand them, and then lay them on foam and put them on foam tape to raise it. So we're really just needing these few little pieces. I've kind of followed the grains, that the lines that are on the wood grain. So we really just need about 8 small strips. We're going to cut them at varying heights. So I'm just going to cut a piece that is about 6 centimeters high, and then I'm going to cut my few strips from there. You can really do as many or as few of these as you like. We're just going to prep them so that we don't have to pull out our guillotines a little bit later. So I'm just cutting a couple of little strips. I'm cutting them basically the width of the lines that are on the wood grain. They're probably roughly about 1.5 centimeters. They don't need to be exact. They can all be slightly different sizes. I think that's probably enough. So we've got, yeah, there's more than enough strips there. So you just need to cut about 8 or 9 of those, and we will put those aside for layout number 2. Right, so we're done with our wood grain sheet. And the second sheet we are not going to use now. You can put that aside. And the next sheet that we're going to use is number 5. It is called Waves. Such a beautiful sheet. Look at the colors there. And on the back, we've got this gorgeous blue. So some of them we're going to use on the blue side, some on the dot side. We can just cut them and we can flip them over. Right. So we're going to cut for our first layout. We're going to cut a piece 11 by 8. We're going to cut 2 of those. So let's cut the border strip off first. Right, so we're cutting 11 centimeters, and we need 2 pieces that are 8. Right, so the one we're going to use that way, the other one we're going to use that way, they're basically the same size. They're both 11 by 8. Right, then we're going to cut another piece. See if that's big enough. No. We're going to cut another piece that's 11 by 16. So we're going to have 11. (11 centimeters by 16 centimeters. We're going to use that on the blue side. And then we need another piece that is 10.5 by 8. This we're going to use on the dot side. 10.5 by 8. Right, so those are the 4 pieces that we need for our first layout. Basically, they're all going to be used for mattings. So we can put those to the left. And then we've got 1 or 2 pieces to cut for our second layout. Right, we need a piece that is 18 by 14.5. Let's see if we can get to 18 here. 18 by 14.5. We're going to use that on the dot side. That's our first piece. Right, then we're going to take our second sheet and we're going to cut another piece that is 14.5 by 23. I'm going to do my 14.5 this way. 14.5 by 23. It's also going to be on the dot side. Right, then we need a couple of mattings that are 10 by 12.5. Let's cut this border strip off. I'm going to cut my 10 this way. 10 by 12.5. This one we're going to use on the blue side. And we need one more. 11.5 by 9. I'm going to cut my small piece first, 9 by 11.5. Okay. Right, so those are the pieces that we're going to need for our second layout. And all of the rest we can put away. Okay, so these are for layout number 2. So they are going to go to the right. Right, the next piece we've got is number 6. It's called Tidal Pool. And it has this light blue sort of skyline on the back. That'll have border strip. Right, so from the blue side, we're going to use one piece that we're going to use for a frame, and it is 10.5 by 7.5. Okay, so I'm just going to cut from the small side to use as little paper as possible. 7.5 by 10.5. Right. So that is the only piece that we need for layout number 1. That's going to go to the left. The rest we're going to use on our second layout. And we need 2 pieces for this. They're both the same size. 11.5 by 9. So I'm going to cut my 9 this way. 11.5. Perfect size. Right, so we need 2 pieces there that are both 11.5 by 9. See, that's actually 9.5. I need to just trim it a little bit smaller. There we are. 11.5 by 9. Both of these pieces we're going to use on our second layout on the blue side. Right. Our next pattern is the second sheet we're not going to use. Right, so now we've got our sheet with the quotes on. As I said, we're going to use some of these quotes, and the ones that we're going to use here, we are going to use this quote border strip. We are going to use this one that says tropical state of mind. We're going to use on the back this journal block, and we're going to use the block that says happy summer. So we can just go ahead actually and cut all of these blocks, because some of them we're going to use on our second layout. We don't even need to measure them because they're all are the right size. You can just follow the guidelines. We'll cut them all, and then we'll just pick the ones that we're going to use for both layouts. Right, so for layout number 1, we're going to use tropical state of mind. We're going to use our quote border strip. We're going to use this journal block. And we're going to use this one that says Happy Summer. And then for layout number 2, we're going to use Best Summer Ever. And this block that says Summer Holidays. Right, so those are the pieces that we need. As I say, these are for layout number 1. And these 2 are for our second layout. Right, our next paper that we're going to use is the fussy cut sheet we've already done, we've already spoken about. So we're going to use this one that says number 9. We're going to use this side. And we are only going to use one piece that is 10.5 by 13. I'm going to cut my border strip off. Right, so 10.5. I've let mine run this way, so I'm going to cut the 10.5 first. 10.5 by 13. Right, that's the piece. That is for layout number 1. And we don't need any more of this paper. And the very last sheet that we're going to cut is this one. As I said, it's number 10, called Flip Flops. We're going to use the net at the back. And the 2 pieces that we need are 14 by 18. Let's cut that off. Right, so we're going to cut a piece 14 by 18. Okay, so what I want to do here is I want my net to run this way on my layout. So I'm first going to cut my second piece because I don't want them to lie that way on the page. So I'm first going to cut the second piece that is, it's cut 13 by 28.5. For some reason, I don't have little word strips or number strips for this, but we're going to use it in that position. It's 28.5 by 13. So that's going to be, these are both for layout number 2. And then the second piece we're going to cut is 14 by 18. So this should leave us with a piece that's 18. And we're going to cut 14 centimeters that way. If it's half a centimeter out or 1 centimeter out, it doesn't really make a difference. We're just going to be using these as layering on our background. Okay, so those are the 2 pieces that we need for layout number 2. And that is pretty much our cutting done. So we can go ahead and get ready for putting it all together. Dennis, can you just pause for a sec? All right, so we've done all our cutting, and these are all the little bits that we're going to use for our first layout, but I'm going to work on the chippies now. So we're going to get our inks out. We're going to prepare our chipboards so that they are ready for when we want to stick them on the layout. So we've got 2 chipboards in our bulk pack. And we're going to use a little bit of them on both. This one is mainly going to be used on the second layout, and this one we're going to use on both layouts. But I'm going to go ahead and color some of the chipboards, and we're going to let them dry so that they are ready for when we need to use them. So because we're going to use a few different ones, it's going to be easier to just cut them off of the frame. And you can just use a scissors or a craft knife to clip these little bits off. And the first one we're going to use is this one that says beach. It says eat, beach, sleep, repeat. So we're going to use that one. We're going to use this one that says Life is better at the beach, and I'm actually going to leave this. Sorry, it's not that one, it's this one. I'm going to leave the starfish attached to it. So, life is better at the beach. Okay, so that's the second one. And then we're also going to use sandy toes and salty kisses. Right, so those are the three that we're going to color for our first layout. And these two, as far as free as the ocean and go with the flow, we're going to use on our second layout. So I can just go ahead and cut them out now. Right, so in order to do the chipboards, you have your inks ready. And I think I have said this before, but I always like to ink my chipboards with white first. The reason why I do that is because this chipboard is a little bit porous. And so if you put your colors straight on it, then sometimes it just gives you sort of hard lines that you can't ombre. The effect that we are doing on this, if you have a look here, we're doing, if you look at this title here, we're doing a little bit of an ombre. We're shading the colors into each other. The same with that. And the same with the one on the second page. We've got these beautiful colors that match the patterns on the colors on the paper. So the white gives us a base coat on which we can shade the other colors. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is just apply white to all of your chipboards. It doesn't matter if your white is wet or dry, but you need to make sure that it's not too dry, that there's no ink on it. I'm just going to use another one because mine is a little bit too dry. Okay. Now you're welcome to use a blending tool or a brush. I like to just use my fingers because it just gives me nice control over the chalks. Fortunately, they wipe off really easily. So if you just have a paper towel or a wet wipe handy, you'll be fine. Right, so I'm going to start with all of these. I'm going to do them. I'm starting with this color. It is called Thatched Straw. It's a little bit of a yellow color, and I'm going to just apply it like that. You can go as far down as you like because the other colors you can just put over it. Right, so that's the yellow. The next color I'm going to use is this one called Aquatic Splash. It's like a minty green. You can still see I have a little bit of yellow on it, and just going to do a little bit below the yellow. And with my finger, I'm going to slightly blend the two colors together so that we don't have a hard line where the two inks join. Okay. And the next color I'm using is called Sea Breeze. Beautiful turquoise blue. And I'm just going to go down and add that below the green. And again, just feather it a little bit with my finger so that it's not such a hard line joining the colors together. And the last color is called Night Sky. Beautiful navy blue. You can see it looks a lot like the paper. Right. Now this color, because it's quite dark, we want to be quite careful how we apply it because it can overpower, which is why it's most important to have the white underneath. So a little bit like that. And now you'll see the magic that your fingers can work just to lighten that join between the two colors. And you're left with a beautiful shaded word like that. Right. So I'm going to do these. And again, just shade it. There we go. And the last one. Right. So let's just flip this over so we can see it on a nice clean piece. See our chipboards beautifully shaded. Really, really, really simple to do. You don't need to overthink it. You can use whatever color combinations you like. Sometimes even just 1 or 2 colors works as well. But in this particular case, I like to shade the 4 colors. And if you look at it and you decide, well, I think I need a little bit more green, you can go back and you can add, or, you know, maybe there's a color that's got a little bit lost and you can just touch up. If you want your yellow maybe to be a little bit brighter, you can just touch up here and there. Okay.
That's
So
really,
those are
really good color choices there. It's so pretty.
See how great.
Paper, yeah.
Absolutely, the colors just work so beautifully. That's why I love these Versamark inks. They just, firstly, they're inexpensive. They're so easy to use. They don't stain your hands. They wipe off easily off your mat, and they just work so beautifully with chipboards. And there are so many colors to choose from. You can pretty much find anything that matches. Right, so those are our chipboards. I'm going to put those aside to dry. Oh, I did add a little bit of stickles, so we can even do that now. I often just do it at the end, but just to show you, we can let it dry while we're busy with the other chipboards. And what I've done with these, instead of putting chipboard everywhere, I've just run a little bit along the middle, on the middle of these words. So I'm just applying it quite liberally and taking my finger and just moving it a little bit around. And if I hold that up, I don't know if you can see that little bit of glitter really just in the middle. But this is, again, something you can put anywhere. Top, bottom. The stickles dries nice and flat. So you don't need to worry about if you've messed or if you've gone over. Okay. So we've added a little bit of sparkle.
Don't you want to just call out those colors again? It's a little bit hard to see on the camera.
Right. I'm going to bring them up a little bit closer and show you. Right. So I've got, this one is called Thatched Straw. The second one is Aquatic Splash. The third one is Sea Breeze. And the fourth one is Night Sky. So those, and then obviously along with my white, those are the 5 colors that I have used. They are on the notes, the names of the colors as well. So if you're not sure, you can refer to the downloadable instructions to give you the names of the colors again. I love how some of the names, Aquatic Splash, Sea Breeze, I mean, they're beautiful beachy colors anyway. So it works well with this collection. Okay. If you don't have these colors, please find other colors that do work. There's other similar colors in the collection, in the range, that will also match with this. Right, so now I can put that aside to dry. And on our second layout, what I've done is just used liquid pearls. If you've never used liquid pearls before, it's a very similar product to stickles. Just want to get a wet wipe to wipe my hands. As you can see, this ink literally just rubs off your fingers with a wet wipe. You don't even need any fancy cleaning materials. Okay. Right, so liquid pearls are basically, it's a dimensional, I guess it's a paint, but it works exactly like stickles, but instead of being a glitter, it's a pearlized accent. I love how it gives a beautiful, like, chunky look to what you apply it to. If you have a look here, I'm going to zoom in and show you. If you can see, I have applied liquid pearls to that, as well as to the compass here. And in fact, I didn't do it all over. I actually just followed the lines and did the compass points and left those parts of the chipboard plain, which actually gave quite a nice effect. You see it more. So we're going to go and do that. We're going to ink. Let's cut our compass out. Right, so these are the parts we're going to apply liquid pearls to. And it's got such a fine little point, it's literally like coloring in. So I'm going to start by just doing my compass point and just go around the contours of this compass. And liquid pearls is a little chunky and it's never going to come out flat and smooth, but that's part of the appeal. So don't worry if it looks a little, I use the word chunky because that's part of that's what makes it look so amazing, is that it's not a neat and perfect application. And I'm going around. And as you can see, I'm leaving that, the solid points of the compass, I'm leaving open, just for a different effect. If you want to color the whole thing in, you're welcome to do that. Or if you want to add dimensional glaze, or you want to add some color to it, you're obviously also welcome to do that. Right, and that's as quick as it can go. If you have a look here, I've gone all around it, and I'm going to leave that to dry. Right, so then we can do these as well. I'm not going to do them right now. We can do them a little bit later, but you can prep all of those to put on the layout and allow it to dry for later on. Right. Let's move on. We're going to construct our layout now. As you know, I do love sanding a lot. You're also going to have your fussy cuts that you have maybe prepared. I'm going to just get some of the fussy cuts ready for some of the bigger details that we're going to use. And all of these pieces, we are going to sand the edges of. But we've got a couple of pieces that I have used as frames. Right, so these 4 pieces, we've got our 2 small squares. Sorry, not those 2. Beg your pardon. It's our sand pieces. We've got 2 squares of sand. We've got a light blue frame, and we've got this sort of yellow ombre frame. So we are going to cut frames from all of these. If you have a look on the layout here, you'll see I've made frames. Okay, now this can be easy, but it can also be a little bit of work. The most simple way to do it, you take your ruler, you flip them over, and you are going to measure. I normally cut my frames in inches, so it's basically a 1/2 inch, which works out to about 1.2, 1.3 centimeters. You can make them slightly wide if it's easier for you. If you want to make them 1.5, or if you want to make them 2 centimeters, you can make the frames as thick as you like. So you're basically going to measure and take your craft knife or your scissors, and you're going to draw a line, and then you're going to cut it out. I do have a fancy little tool that I know I have shown before, which I'm going to use now just to speed things along. Got this lovely frame punch board. It's one of my favorite tools. And what this does is it cuts the little corners for you on the inside, so you don't have to measure. Right, so it's got these little tracks. I've put them in at 1/2 inch, and it's basically like a corner rounder. You're going to put your frame in, punch all the way around. So it leaves us with that. And then all you need to do is either take your scissors or a craft knife and a ruler and just cut those little points. I'm just going to do it now with the scissors, just to show you how quick and easy. The trimmer, the tool does actually have a little trimmer here that you can use. I'm just find it easier to just nip it with the scissors. And it leaves you quick and easy with a beautiful frame. Okay, so what you can do now, if you don't like measuring, you can use your first frame as a template. Even if it's not the same size, you can put it along the back. I'm going to turn it upside down so I don't get pen marks on it. And you can take a pen or a pencil and you can use this in each corner as a frame, like this. Okay, so we've basically drawn our frame without having to measure each piece. You can use one frame that you've cut as a template, and you can do that for your other two pieces as well. And then just cut along there. So you only really need to measure once. All right, so I'm just obviously going to use my tool and cut the other frames.
Are those still not in stock anywhere?
No, sadly still not. That I know of. There might be a store or two that have some, but I know from an importer point of view, they're not available at the moment. So we're going to try very hard to get some in the new year because they are very much in demand.
Yes, somebody actually posted theirs for sale on Scrap and Sell. And I was the second person there. I'm like, please, please, I want it. But I was the second person, and the first person got it. It's like, no.
What I also love is it leaves you these little pieces which are so cute as photo corners. You know, if you've got a let's use a piece like that as an example, you can use them as little photo corners on a layout. If you look how cute that is. So there's even something you can use with the little offcuts. All right. So I have got my 4 frames.
So Julie, while you're cutting there, you're locked in a scrapbook room with a collection, but you can only take stickles or a sanding block. Which one?
Oh my gosh, Dennis, are you trying to stress me out? So I'm going to say that it's gonna have to be a sanding block because you know I can add the stickles once I get out the room.
Clever play.
But my sanding block and stickles is also only used a little bit on a few things. My sanding block I use for everything. So it's going to have to be sanding block for me, I'm afraid. But it's a tough choice. Right. See, my craft knife is a little bit blunt. Right, so those are my 4 frames. And now, obviously, I'm going to raise all 4 of the frames with foam tape. But before I do that, we're going to have to sand all the edges. And as you know, with me and all my projects, I sand pretty much everything. So I'm going to show you the pieces that you don't need to sand because some of them are just sort of backgrounds for the frame. So these 3 small pieces of wood grain, you can set aside. We don't need to sand those. But we are going to sand pretty much all the rest of these. If you prefer to ink, you're obviously welcome to do that. All of these pieces that I've got here, we're going to sand. So my tip for sanding, and I'm going to see if you can actually see it on the edge over here, is I move my cutting mat just to the edge of my work surface. Right, so I move let's just take one here that's easier to show. I put my cutting mat right on the edge of my table, just a little bit off, and I move the piece of paper onto the edge of the cutting mat, and I literally, at about a 45-degree angle, I sand like that. And that's the edge I get. So it's a lot easier than doing it in the air because sometimes your paper is a little bit flimsy. If you do it on your cutting mat, it's the quickest and the easiest to do. So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to speed sand all of these pieces. Just remember, I might be working at a pace that's a little quicker than you are, but you can pause your video, get all the prep done, and then unpause and carry on. Right, so we're going to sand all of these pieces. I think we did a little bit of a query, I think, in one of the last videos about about the sanding, who loves it and hates it. And I think most people said that once they've tried it, they realize that it gives such a nice effect that they'll carry on using it. So I may have convinced most of you.
It definitely looks really cool on the darker sheets. I like it on all of it, but
It
yeah,
definitely
I
does.
want to see that one.
Yes, I mean, you'll see this instantly. I mean, you don't even need to
There
put
we
it on
go.
anything, and you can see what the
Yeah.
sanding does. And just to, like, this piece is going to go on top of it. You know, even though you think you don't see it, you really do. When you put it all together, it really does make a difference. Just to add, it almost looks like an extra layer of matting. Just
Yes.
adds that little bit of character to the edge, if I can call it that. Okay. Right, even though these pieces are light, I'm doing them as well, because as I say, when you put it all together, you will see the difference. And I'm going to do my frames. Okay, now to do in the middle of the frames is pretty much the same thing. You can also just move, I think you can just see it on the screen. You can also just move the frame right to the edge, and you can get inside of your frame with your sanding block like that. If that doesn't work for you, you can just rub them a little bit in the air like this and get the same effect. It also works if you have maybe a small little emery board or a nail file or something like that, if you want to get in those little corners. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can sand as much or as little as you like. Whoopsie, don't do that. We'll just stick it back together. Just do a little repair job here on my frame that I've just torn. Don't even see it.
Are you taking some time off between Christmas and New Year? Some beach days?
You know, I think living in Cape Town, we're so blessed. I can have a beach day almost, well, not any day of the year, but most weekends we can have beach days. But definitely going to have a little bit of some R&R. I will work just until before Christmas, and then the week between Christmas and New Year, have a little bit of a break, and maybe a couple of days into January when it gets a little bit quieter. So I'm always happy to go with the December crazy time. I'm happy to work because I don't like being out and about when there's too many people. I prefer it when it quietens down a little bit. So yeah, we've got not going away, but have some family coming, and so we'll do some family get-togethers. And
yeah, I must say, I'm not a fan of the crowds either, but
yeah,
what is quite nice is swimming with lots of people, because I always think,
the vibe
for us in the Cape, from you to us, there are a lot of great whites, and if there's more people in the water, my odds are a little bit better.
I completely get you, or they can rather eat someone else. Yes,
so it's always nicer when there's like somebody who's a bit more chubbier than you in the water, because I reckon the shark's like, no, that's a tastier meal.
Let's rather go for a full meal than a half meal. Nice, Venus. Yeah, unfortunately, with the warmer weather and the slightly warmer seas, it does bring the sharks out. But I think, yeah, I mean, there have been obviously incidents, but I think we're quite well set up at most of the beaches with shark spotters and things like that. So I generally don't venture too deep in the sea anyway, so I'm fine.
Yeah. So I mean, there's been two attacks this season, both in Plet, up sort of this way. So yeah, no,
Yes.
get in the water there at the moment. 2 in one season is a bit, and I think both were fatal, eh?
Yes, they were. I know the previous one was a young lady that died. Yeah, no,
Yeah, from Cape Town, I think she was.
Scary. Yes, she's from Cape Town. So I'm just adding some foam tape. Sorry, just before we talk about sharks eating people, I'm just going ahead and adding foam tape to the back of my 4 frames. So this is also just prepping everything, which you can go ahead and do. But I hear you, Dennis. That's one of the reasons I don't love swimming in the ocean, is because I can't see what's underneath my feet. But there is something to be said about a sea swim, and I know you and your family are big sea swimmers.
Yes, no, in summer it's twice a day for us. If a shark is going to take me, I just want it caught on YouTube, because I want it to go down as a viral hit.
You want to go out with a bang. I mean, I suppose what a way to go, hey? Doing something you love. It's probably more exciting than being taken out by a motor car or something.
Well, that's what I always say. I mean, you know, if you have to go, there are cooler ways.
Oh, goodness me. Yeah, look, I think your chances of being eaten by a shark are way less than some of the other more common things like accidents or things like that. So yeah, for those that are traveling to any of the beaches, please don't worry. I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. Just stay away from Durban. Right. You'll be fine.
Yeah, well, apparently you can't go on the sea anyway in Durban, as you said, at the moment. So it's all good. Okay. So I have put foam tape, as you can see, on all 4 of my frames. Everything is prepped. And this layout is actually quite a nice, easy one to put together now that we've got all our pieces. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the pieces together that go together, going to double mat them, and then we're going to stick them onto our layout. And this layout might look like it's got a lot going on, but it's actually really, really simple to put together, because our background is already done, so we don't need to build any kind of background. Yeah, it's a nice, easy one. So I'm going to carry on just with prepping, and I'm going to put tape behind all these 3 pieces, my 3 border strips that are also going to go on the layout. I'm just going to apply tape to them so that they are ready to stick down. And I'm going to do the same with all of these pieces. None of these are going to be raised with foam tape, so you can go ahead and apply tape to all of these. If you use wet glue, then you'll obviously just glue them as you go along. But I'm going to just quickly prep them. I think when you're doing a layout and you're designing from scratch, you might stick a piece down, each piece as you go. But when you're following a tutorial, I find it so much quicker to get everything prepped. So you do all your cutting, then you do all your sanding, and then you do all your sticking. You will see that it definitely, just to keep things in the same sort of movement, it goes much quicker to do it that way. Right, I like to just add a bit of tape to the middle of my pieces that I'm sticking down as well. Just to make sure that they are stuck down. Right, and this I think is the last one. Okay, so I've added tape to everything, and what I'm going to do now is just get my mats together. The pieces that are, I lost my, there it is. Lost one of my quotes. Right. So let's check in my sizes. There we go. Right. So this is going to be our first frame. I've just added, instead of it going like that, I've just added a little bit of the wood grain underneath it. So the first thing I'm going to do is stick this first frame together onto its matting. Right. I didn't. This here I actually have the wrong piece, the small piece that we didn't sand, sorry. Right, so I'm going to do that. And then this piece, that's actually a matching. This piece is going onto that little dotted piece. It's just going to give us a little bit of a darker frame around it. We've got that one ready. Then we have this piece, which is going to go onto here. It's also got a little bit of a dark frame. If you just put it like that, you'll see it gets a little bit lost on the layout, but adding that small little bit of blue just gives it that little bit of impact. Right, so I'm adding those, double matting that layout, that photo mat. I'm double matting this one onto the large blue piece. Okay, and then these two frames, I'm also just putting on my two small bits of wood grain. Now, before we stick anything on a layout, we're going to pull out our fussy cuts because I like to tuck little bits and pieces underneath. We've got some, I'm keeping these like this because the foam tape is still a little bit sticky. We've got some, I've lost my train of thought. We've got some tabs and things like that that need to go underneath. So I want to get all of those ready before I stick everything down. Right. Okay. So let's get my fussy cut bits together. My borders. I've separated all the pieces that I'm going to use for this so that I have them all handy. Okay, so the main thing I'm going to need now is my tabs. I'm going to just keep those together one side because I like to tuck the tabs underneath my photo mats. Right, so I'm going to stick this one down, my quote. That's the first piece I'm going to stick down. And I'm going to use this tab that says beach bum. Just going to tuck it underneath the top. It does cling to a little bit to my foam tape, but I'm going to use some glue just to secure it as well. Right, and that's going to go on our left page, just like that. Right. The next piece is this frame that I'm going to stick down. There's no tab tucked underneath it. And it's going to go more or less there. On the notes, I probably have given you instructions on how many centimeters from the top you're welcome to refer to that. I'm just going to eyeball it here. It's probably about 0.5 centimeter from the top. I would estimate that's about 6 centimeters from the left. And I'm going to stick that one down. And then the next one is this. I'm going to use the Stay Wild tab. Which I'm going to put on the left side. I'm going to move that one just a little bit inwards, like that. Right, so that's part of our left page stuck down. Now we move to the right page, and I have this one that I'm going to use. I'm going to use my summer tab to the right of it. Pop that about there. And this is going to go on our left page. About 0.5 to 1 centimeter from the left and the top. Now I haven't put too much glue behind that, just on the bottom part, because I'm going to put my frame just next to it. I want to be able to see this beautiful sun image here, so I don't want to stick over it. And this frame, I didn't actually put a matting behind the frame because, you know, without the photos, it was quite nice to see a little bit of that cloud sticking out behind. But obviously, you're going to put a photo in here. If you want to have full-sized photos behind your frames, then the tip is do not peel all your foam tape off. It's very easy to add a photo to a matting like this. But for a frame, if you've stuck the whole thing down, it's very difficult to slide a photo underneath. So I'm going to stick it down for purposes of this display. But please only peel possibly 1 or 2 pieces of it so that your frame can lift and you can slide your photo underneath. The alternative is to cut your photo slightly smaller and just almost have a little bit of an inner frame showing if you don't want to leave part of your frame not stuck down. Right, so I'm going to pop that just over there and stick my frame down. Right, now this journal card is going to go also here, just below the frame. I have another tab that I'm going to stick to the right side of it. I'm going to use this one that says Fun in the Sun. And I'm going to put that. Dennis, please never stop making these tabs with the words on. I absolutely love them. I can't speak for everyone else, but I love tabs on the sides of photo mats. And, you know, even if you're not doing layouts and you're doing mini albums, they're great for the sides of pages and things like that. So please always keep, if you ever change any elements, don't take the tabs away because Juliet loves them.
I'll bear that in mind. Have a look at the next collection. I know you've got the design team back because we might have actually upgraded those tags slightly for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I received it. I glanced at it so quickly because I haven't had time to look yet, but now you've intrigued me. It's gorgeous. So I'm very excited. Right. I'm going to leave this for a minute. I want to place my two frames at the bottom first. Right, so the one is going to go here because this is also just going to guide me with the space that I've got, bottom, and the second one is going to go here next to it, but I'm also going to add this little tab that says Beach Vibes. So I'm going to put that next to it. And I'm going to add this little tab just underneath it. Okay. Right, so before we stick this, we've got a bit of a border strip that's going to go here as well as this. And what I want to do with this is I want to add, sometimes I just bend them a little bit just to make it fluff up so that it doesn't stand flat on the layout. And then one can always go afterwards and add some foam tape or things like that. So for now, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue behind it because it's easy to lift up and add afterwards. I'm just adding a little bit of glue, and I'm going to glue this like that. Okay, so you can see that's still loose. Once I've stuck my photos down, I can go ahead and stick that down or secure it. But for now, I'm going to leave it. I'll probably put a little piece of foam tape underneath here just to pop it up and keep it at a nice dimensional height. But I don't want to add complete glue because then I'm not going to be able to slide my photo underneath. But for now, it's in place. And we are first, before I stick this down, I want to add these layered borders. So I have done these like this. And I have cut this quote over here where it says, just next to the word watch. So that's going to position the distance between my left page and my right page is the quote. And then these two, I will work around that as well. Okay, so let's just get our cutter back. And I'm just going to trim this quote. That's going to give me my measurement. It's roughly 21 centimeters. That, so I'm going to go ahead now. I have cut the little blue border that was on here off because most of it's going to be hidden. This is from one of the fussy cut sheets. So I'm going to cut again 21 centimeters from that side. So I have that. And pretty much the same with this. It's going to work out just sort of between that bird. Cut off his tail a little bit. Okay. Save that tiny little piece of his tail that I can stick back. All right, so I'm going to start by sticking down the bottom border strip. And this is basically going to go just above my photo frame that I have put here, like that. I'm going to line up my two pages together so that I can make sure that this fits. If you find that it's a little bit long, you just trim it a little bit to fit underneath there. And I'm going to line it up next to it like that. Okay. Then I'm going to put the top border strip like that, and our quote is going to go over the center. So I'm going to stick this down first. Again, I'm not going to put too much glue behind the little posts and the things at the top that are going over my photo mat because I just have one board. I just have one strip of tape at the bottom. I can secure it later because I would like to be able to add photos that aren't already covered by elements, and then I can't fit my photos underneath. Okay. Our strips like that, and the quote's going to go in the middle. As high or as low as you like, but it's just to cover the join between those two pieces. And you can see how the lighter quote is contrast between the darker brown and the darker blue over here. You again can choose any of the quotes that you feel are more suited perhaps to your photos. I love this one also because of the coloring, and it just brought up the soft blues that are in the layout. Right, so now I have another little fussy cut element here. Oh, let's put our little bird's tail on. even though he's halfway across the page. There we go. He just looks a little more complete now, not chopped in half. Okay, now I'm going to add this, and again, I'm going to just put a little piece of foam tape behind it because I really want this to pop up. Just one piece. And I'm going to put glue along the bottom so that just the top part is sticking out. I'm going to add that there. That's also going to sort of close the hard edge of this border strip. I'm going to have that piece like that. That, and another little bird on the other side. I'm going to add a piece of foam tape just to pop him up. And what that'll do is also just close that hard cut edge that we've created here, so that you don't see the hard line of the border strip. Okay. Right. These two little bits I'm going to add to the top here. I'm going to just glue them together to each other. A little bit like that. Put them together, and then I'm going to add a piece of foam tape to the back because I'd like them to stand up a little. And we're going to adhere these to the top. I'm going to add them just behind that. And I've got two quotes on this side, two circles here that we're also going to put foam tape on. Right, and these I've added to either side of the layout. Take me to the beach. Just going to pop it there above the trees. And this one that says, let the sea set you free. We're going to pop over here. So those two circles again, like repeating elements on either side of the layout for a little bit of symmetry. Okay. I'm going to add a few other little bits and pieces, some of our fussy cuts. And this is really just the part where you can have fun and you can take your elements and just stick them wherever it really works for you. Let's stick this quote card down. What I have done here is just maybe something a little different with the ribbon from the embellishment pack. And I've just cut two small little pieces of ribbon like that. I have folded them in half. I'm going to use a little piece of tape to do this. So I've folded my ribbon in half like that. And I'm going to put it just behind this photo mat, using a piece of ribbon to secure it. And the same with the second piece. Like that. I'm just adding a piece of ribbon again. Sorry, a piece of tape. So it's just two little ribbon folds. It's just a different way of using ribbon. And we're going to stick that one down over here. And add a little bit of glue to secure, especially where we've done the ribbon, just to make sure that it sticks down. And I'm sticking this quote a little bit offset against this bottom one, like that. So my little ribbon folds, you have a look here, are just tucked behind there. Instead of made, this layout wasn't particularly a bow layout. I didn't really have space to do a long strip of ribbon, but I really wanted to use these pretty colors. And you can actually repeat that possibly over here, if you like. Right, so let's stick our chipboards down. they are dry now. I've got this one that we're going to add to the top. Life is better at the beach. And you can see now how lovely those colors look. The darker color at the bottom also offsetting against there. I'm going to add sandy toes, salty kisses. Going to add this one over here. And my last chipboard that we have prepped. And I'm going to put that on this quote card. Like that. Right, so all that's left now is again our finishing touches. I like to add little bits of these quotes. Tuck a few little elements underneath. And I have, if you've noticed, I've used these blue ones, and I have repeated the same color across the layout so that there's some repetition in terms of the color and the theme. And I've added another one at the top of this frame. Yeah, so we're just adding little bits of our fussy cuts to create some interest to the layout and add all our finishing touches. I'm going to add this one over here. That little spot. We can do some bits and pieces on our frames at the bottom. There are so many of these little words. You can really choose the words that work for you, that suit your photos. And add a little shell underneath there. And a little starfish to this one. Something a little bit in that border. So this is my favorite part, is just to find all the little bits and pieces I've got left and just add them to the layout. As finishing touches. Let's do wild and free over there. And again, if you are concerned about your photos, don't put too much glue on all of these pieces, because you will want to flap them up so that you can tuck your photos underneath. Okay, and that is pretty much our first layout done. Second layout is actually very quick as well, because we have done all the cutting and we have done all the prep, but you can go ahead and still add some domes or some of the acetates. We'll do that right at the end, but that's pretty much our first tropical layout done. Yeah, and you can see how nice the stickles looks. You can see how that glitter is dried on our titles, and it just adds that bit of sparkle. I, of course, have gone and added a little bit of stickles to some of the details on the trees, maybe some of the shells, and you can really just zhuzh it up a little bit with some glitter or some dimensional glaze if you would like. Right, so that's our first layout done. All right, so now we're going to start working on our second layout, and I have put together the pieces that we are going to need for that. And we cut everything originally, so everything should be in place. I've just put out a few of my little fussy cuts and the things that we're going to use. And all of these pieces, this is going to be our background. As we said, we're going to use those 2 sheets for our background. And then these are all the pieces that we're going to use for our matting. Now, we had a small little break in between, and I've gone ahead and sanded all of these pieces so that you don't have to watch me do it. Feel free to pause your video if you want to catch up on the sanding. But these are basically the pieces that we need. Those are for our background, and these are all our photo mats. So if you want to get all of those ready, and you can sand the edges of all of those pieces, and then we're going to start putting them onto our background. All right, so our background page is that. It has the 2 sheets together. It forms a beautiful frame. I love how the patterns are seamless. And we're going to start now with these 4 background pieces. We're going to put tape on all of them, and then we are going to stick them onto our layout. Right, so if you haven't sanded, you can do that now. If you'd like to ink them, you can do that as well. Right, so I wanted to use a few of these patterns on the background. Even though our background sheet has this beautiful frame, wanted to just add a little bit of pattern in the middle. So we've also got our 2 striped border strips that we're going to use. And we're going to start with the smaller of the net pieces. And we're going to start by sticking that onto the left page. All right, so we are going to stick this, if you like to measure, we're going to stick this approximately, I'd say about 6.5 centimeters from the left. So I always like to use my grid as a mat. We're going to do it flush against the top. So it's basically just next to that little seagull image over there. And you can stick your net piece down. You just need this a little bit more into the frame. Right, so we can stick that piece down. And then our second net piece is going to go on this page, approximately here. So we can stick that one down. Right, and this one is also about 5.5 centimeters from the bottom. It's kind of in the middle of that boat image. As I say, it's just a background piece, so the exact placement is not really necessary. And we can stick that over there. And we're going to take our border strips. This one, we're going to just trim it down just so that it lines up with that piece. And we can stick that just on top of that net piece over here. And we're going to do exactly the same with the other border strip. We can just trim it down to just fit the length of that piece. And we're going to stick it to the bottom of that net piece. Okay, and now we've got our 2 dot pieces. The larger of the 2 pieces is going to go on the left page. Beg your pardon, the other way around, the smaller and the larger piece is going to go over there. So this will also go flush against the edge of the page. And we are putting this about roughly, I'd say about 4 centimeters from the bottom of the page. Flush against the edge, and it's going to slightly overlap that piece over there. And then our last background piece the other dot strip. It's going on the right-hand page. And we want to put that fairly close to the edge, also flush against the top, probably about 1.5 to 2 centimeters from the right-hand side. Okay, so that's just a little bit of pattern on our background, and now we can go ahead and carry on with our photo mats. Now I've done something a little bit different with the photo mats. We have, these pieces are all the same size, and I've got 3 like that, and I've got 2 light blue and 1 dark blue. And what I'm going to do is mat each of these onto here, but they've been cut the same size. So instead of matting them like this, we're going to offset mat. So we're just going to stick it that you're only going to see it on 2 sides of the photo mat, just for something a little bit different. So I'm going to put tape on these. Oh, same for the blue one. This one is slightly larger. So just make sure you have the right sizes put together. Okay, so I'm going to start with this larger blue one. You don't need to measure this, but just make sure that the pieces that you're doing on both sides are more or less in balance. I would say about 0.5 centimeter, 1/4 inch, something like that. So that's how we're going to offset mat all of these pieces. And some of them we're going to do on the top, some of them we're going to do on the bottom, some on the left, some on the right, just for a little bit of variety. They don't all look the same. Okay, we're going to use the lighter blue here. And because we've done that one on the left, I'm going to do this one on the right. Yeah, just a slightly different way of matting so that not all our pages look the same, I guess. And our last one, we'll do top left again. And that one is going to go there. All right, so now we can stick those mattings down. Again, I've got a couple of tabs that I want to add behind them. I'm going to add that tab on that side, and we'll put this good times over there. So we can go ahead and stick these down. Just add our tab. Continue to add a little bit of wet glue to this, just to make sure that our tab is in place. Stick it down like that. Right, then I can stick this one down. And this one is just going to go a little bit that we can see the dots all the way around. So you can just place it in the center of that dot piece on the right-hand side. Okay, onto the right page. Now here also I want to add a little tag on the left-hand side. So I've got one of my fussy cut tags, and I'm just going to stick it underneath like that, just so that there's a little piece of it sticking out. If you would like to have the tag functional that you can pull it out, then you'll just put tape around the 3 sides so that that tag can slide in or out. I'm just doing it for effect, so it's not necessarily a functional tag. So I'm going to stick it down properly. Okay, This one's also going to go in a sort of an even position with the dot showing all the way around. We have our tab underneath, and this one just underneath it. Yeah, and I want to line up the outer edges, so even though they're offset on different ways, there's still nice straight lines running between them. Okay, so that's our photo mat stuck down. That was nice and easy. Right, now I'm going to take this nice big light out image, and I want to put it here to create a bit of a background. So you can just go ahead and glue this whole piece down. Nothing needs to go underneath it, so we can just apply adhesive to the whole thing. And I'm going to position it quite close to the edge of the page, like that. Okay. Then we've got a quote card here that says best summer ever, and I'm going to position that more or less over there. So I've just got a little bit of the lighthouse shadowing the lighthouse that's on the card. And this we can stick down. It's not going to be raised with foam tape. We're going to just stick it down flat. Right, and that's going to go more or less like that. Okay. Right, and I'm going to use my summer holidays tab. Sorry, quite a little journal card. That one we're going to put here. If you prefer some of the other sides of these or a card with different words, you can use the ones that you like or the ones that suit your photos better. And we're going to put that over here. Like that. Okay. Now I'm going to work with these. We've got these lovely fussy cut boats. I'm going to raise both of these on foam tape. I'm going to put one on this side and I'm going to put the other one on that side. So I'm going to put foam tape behind both of them to give us some height, some dimension. The top parts of them are quite thin, so I'm going to cut my foam tape into a thinner strip just to get there. And then just add some to the rest. Okay, that should do. Let's peel this off. Right, I want this one to go just next to my photo here. So we're going to put it more or less like that. And this one is going to go on the right-hand page. Once you've positioned everything on your layout, if you find that you want to add a little bit more foam tape underneath small parts, you can go back and do that. It's fairly easy to add afterwards. And I'm going to do that slightly. I don't want to cover too much of my photo like that. That little bit in the end of the page, I'm just going to take my scissors and snip it off so that it lines up with the edge of the page. Right, so we've got our boats in place, and we've got this little border strip that I'm going to put here. So now we want to add a little bit of foam tape, but again, I don't want too much foam tape because I still want to put, there's already some foam tape under there, and I still want to add a quote strip. So I'm just going to cut my foam tape into thin strips unless you have thin pieces. And I'm going to put it right along the bottom. And afterwards, I can go back and add little pieces to secure it if I feel that I need to. Okay, so we're going to add this more or less just to the end of the page, like that. Right, got other little bits and pieces here. I've got some more fussy cuts. These little birds I'm going to tuck. I'm not going to put glue underneath the actual birds because it's going to slightly overlap our photo. So I want to just tuck it in a little bit like that and have them. After I put my photo down, I will secure that with some more glue. Right, I've got 2 more boats here, and what I've done is I'm just going to layer them a little bit over here. I'm going to trim off the pieces that tuck underneath. Don't want to cover too much of my lighthouse and my background page. So we're just going to add these a little bit like that. And this one, I'm going to offset behind here. Cut the tip off. And pop that in like that. So the 2 boats are kind of slightly over each other. Right. And we're going to add a little bit of this greenery over here because there is some on that page, so we want to repeat the colors. And I'm going to use a little bit of foam tape behind this just to pop up some of the leaves. Won't necessarily pull it off now because I have a photo here, but I'm going to pull that top piece off and I'm just going to put glue along the bottom just to get it in place. And we are going to position it more or less like that. Okay, so that piece I will again do later once I've positioned my photo in place. All right, so now we've got a few more little touches we're going to add. We're going to put this compass on the top, but it definitely needs a little bit of foam tape to raise it, to give it some dimension. I'm going to add that there. And I'm going to do a little bit of detail here on the right. That in there. And I've got my little word strips again that I absolutely love. So we're going to place a couple of these across the layout. Remember just to add glue to the small little side bits so that you can still add your photos without having to pull them up. We'll do one there. We're going to do another one on this top photo. Like that. And we're going to add some more detail over here. We're going to use another one of these little ship's wheels. Let's use this bigger one. Let's just put that in here. And I'm going to add another little word strip, but this one I think I'm going to raise on foam tape just to give it a little bit of dimension again. This is 12 more foam tape, so it should be just the right height. Pop over there. So hides the bottom of that fussy cut boat piece. Okay. Just going to add another one over here. We'll pop that on a piece of foam. Put that over there, and we'll add another little word strip here. So I'm just going to put a small piece in the middle because there's already some foam tape under the wheel, and we're going to do that to the bottom of that piece. Right, so now before we get to this border strip and the last few little bits, we are going to add these little strips that we cut earlier on. So what we're going to do is we are going to sand the edges of these, but first we're going to just position them more or less how I want them. And you're going to make them different heights. Some are going to be a little taller, some are going to be shorter. They don't all have to be the same. So you can just play around until you're happy with a little bit up, a little bit down. We are going to put them on foam tape. And then we're just going to cut them off. There's no need to measure here. You can really just do it randomly. Taller, shorter, a little bit shorter. And you can just play around with different heights to get like a little mini fence going. Weather washed fence, if we can call it that. More or less like that. So, like I say, cut them at varying heights, and then you're going to take each piece, and these ones I'm going to recommend that you sand like this in your hand so that they get a little bit crunched and scrunched, and they get a little bit not so neat and perfect, because that's kind of the look we want. We want a look of like weathered wood. So we don't want the sanding to be perfect and flat. And you want to roughen up your corners a little bit so that they look quite distressed. And then each of these pieces, we're going to put on a little strip of foam tape as well. Some of them you can even cut the little corners. You can cut them even slightly skewed. They don't need to be straight. But that all adds to the effect of what we're creating here. Scrunch them up a little bit if you like. Right. Okay, so now we're going to put foam tape behind all of these pieces and stick them down with a little bit of spacing between each piece. Let's see. We're going to run them from the bottom of the page upwards. Right, so I've put foam tape on all of them, and now I'm going to start putting them down. I'm going to leave a millimeter or two gap from the bottom, and we're going to just place them a couple of millimeters apart. Like that. Yeah, and as I say, the varying heights is what gives it visual interest, and the fact that they're not perfect. They don't all have to be straight. You can place some of them a little bit skew if you like. And there we are. I love that. It's so cute, and it's something you can just do, especially with a wood grain with little strips of paper. We just created a little fence. Right, so I've got a quote now that I want to stick along the bottom here, and I want it to go across. Here. So I'm going to cut it. I always like to, if I'm going to cut my quotes, I always like to find the right spot to halve them. I'm going to cut it just past the comma, in that the C once it casts its spell. So I'm going to separate it there, and we're going to stick that down. Just over the bottom here. Like that, across. Now this one, we're going to just put a little bit of tape right on the top so that it adheres to that fence. I'm going to add a few little pieces of foam tape, thin pieces right at the bottom, just to level it out, because it's going to be half on a raised surface and half on a flat surface. So we don't want the quote to bend. So I'm just adding 1 or 2 little pieces like that, just to balance it out. And we line up our pages, and we're going to put that next to it on that side. Right, so our quote is now going across, and we can now add, we want to add a little bit of detail here to close off that edge. So I'm going to pop a piece of foam tape underneath this boat, little circle image. And add that over here. And add a little bit more glue behind it. And add this little one next to it. Okay, so we're on the home stretch. We've got our chipboards to stick down, our chipboards that we added liquid pearls to earlier on. And I'm going to use this large compass over here. So let's add some glue to the back of it. And we're going to position that in the center of that block here. Make sure you put your compass points in the right order. North is at the top. And I want to add a little tag detail here, but I'm just going to cut it off and stick it at the top so that it looks like it's peeking out from behind that photo mat. And then another little fussy cut as a finishing touch. Right, and now I've got Free as the Ocean. I'm going to pop that one there. Like that. And I've got another one here, Go with the Flow. We're going to put that one down here on the right page. In that little gap. All right, and now it's just a few little finishing touches. We've got a couple of chipboards. I'm going to add one of these. Another one here. And you can use the rest of the fussy cuts items wherever you like, as many or as few as you like. I'm going to add this little birdie in to make it look like he's sitting on top of the fence. Anywhere where you feel there's a little dot that just needs some filling. Add some adhesive here. This piece is coming loose. Right, and then all I've done is I've added 1 or 2 of these little strips over here. So going to put them at different lengths. And again, we'll just cut off at the end of the page. Now, as a perfect finishing touch, we've got these beautiful domes that come in our embellishment pack, and I want to add one to the middle here. I'm going to use the seagull. Look how beautiful that looks in the middle of the compass. I'll put another one in the middle there. And the other one here. You can add as many or as few of these across your layout, just to add a little bit of different textures. I love the little shiny bits. And
you can add as many, but not as few, because in the rules of Juliet, do it once, do it twice, do it thrice.
Okay, so you can't use one, but you can add as few as two. But keep going. I mean, if you want to add all of them, I mean, I might have used one or two on the first layout that we haven't stuck down, but I mean, by all means, like, make use of them. They are. I just love this one in the middle of the compass. I think it works so beautifully. You see, then it also adds a little bit of texture, a little bit of glaze. It just works so nicely. Just to add a little bit of, I love the different textures on a layout. And that is basically, oh, wait. We can also add one or two items from our acetate sheet. You want to see how beautiful these look against here. Our acetate sheet like this. So I have used one or two of these corners. And if you just cut them out, I like to sort of follow the contours of it. Let's just cut it off the sheet first, so that you don't have a hard border on the inside. I like to sort of just cut around it. And then we can add one of them. I just want to find zip here. Yeah, I think I've mentioned before, for me, this is the easiest glue to use to stick these down. You turn it upside down, you add little dots, and it does dry clear. So this you're obviously going to do after you've stuck your photos down, but I've put one over there like that. And you can see how beautiful that looks, just framing that photo mat. And again, like Dennis just said, use it once, use it twice. I've added another one on this side of the page. I love that these are blue. It just goes so beautiful with the collection instead of, you know, the traditional black and white. So the blue color is really effective here, especially when we've used a lot of the lighter background papers, and you can add the blue. So I actually added one here, but I'm going to have to just lift my chippy a little bit to put it here in the corner. Since I was a little bit hasty in sticking that down. And you can add a little corner here. Like that, even though it's not on exactly the same position as the one on the other page, it does mirror that and just creates a little bit of interest in the top left corner. So you can go ahead and use the rest of these as you like. Once you've placed your photos, sometimes they look really nice over photos. It's difficult to stick them all down now if you don't have your photos in place, but these can be a really fun finishing touch to your layout. And that is our second layout done and dusted. This one was a real quick and easy. Once we've done all the prep, very easy to put together. And there's so much going on, but it really didn't take long to construct.
It's really striking, and yeah, the fence idea is really cool. Just add some nice dimension to it.
Yes, a fun way to use all your little bits, and it, as I said, does work exceptionally well with wood grain. If one wanted to get really creative, you could even rope string up and down through it and tie it
Oh.
and sort of and really copy that sort of look, you know. So yeah,
Very,
have fun
very
with it.
good. I love this layout. It's beautiful.
Love this collection. So I hope you all have enjoyed the 2 layouts we did today. I'm going to quickly show you the other one again. Just put them both. Let's just put them both here. You can see what we have created. And yeah, there's our 2 projects. And as you saw when we cut, there's still lots of paper left. So go ahead. You can even do another double spread. You can make some cards. You can do a single layout. Whatever works for you with the leftovers.
Very good. Juliet, thank you again very, very much. Always enjoy following your classes. They're so well put together and so well thought out, and there's notes available. So yeah, enjoy creating this. Juliet, thank you. I know you haven't been well this week at all, but you persevered and you've done the class. So
Thank you. Yes, no, well, this definitely lifts my spirits, and it draws your attention away from other issues. So it's all good, and it's been an absolute pleasure spending time with you all. So yes,
awesome.
We will see you again next time.
Definitely. So we do have something coming up. I'm not going to announce anything now, but we do have something quite exciting happening between Christmas and New Year. So there's a collection coming out that'll keep us busy in that period where we're all off. And yeah, so quite excited for that. But thank you to everybody.
I won't give anything away, but I have seen it and it's absolutely gorgeous. You're going to love it, and an exciting new product. So I'm sure everyone's going to love it, and it's going to be really, really well received. So I'm very excited to work with it.
Awesome. Okay, Juliet, I'm going to let you get going now and go and rest up. And yeah, we hope you feel better really soon. And thank you again for an awesome class. And thank you to everybody at home who's joined us today. Juliet and I obviously really do enjoy chatting with you on the chat side. So if you can squeeze some chatting in between all the crafting, we really do appreciate it. And we'll see you guys between Christmas and New Year for the next online class.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Bye.